să mergem acum la Don McGillivray. Dânsul este director adjunct al direcției Calitatea, mediului și economia circulară în guvernul scoțian. Vă mulțumim că ați acceptat să fiți alături de noi astăzi. Vă rugăm să abordați tema sistemului de garanție-returnare în Scoția. Care sunt obiectivele legislative și cum ați reușit să puneți în aplicare acest mecanism? Vă rog.
Good morning from Edinburgh. Thank you for inviting me to speak this morning. So I'm going to outline the main features of the Scottish DRS scheme, which is now passed into law and which is due to come into place in July 2022. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, and we shall hopefully you will tell me if it is working.
Până apare prezentarea invitatului nostru, pentru toți participanții, să știți că sunt două butoane disponibile care asigură traducerea în timp real în limba română și în limba română. Vă rog să apelați la ele. Please, mister.
Okay, can you see my presentation? Can I just check?
Not yet. Please share content.
Okay, I'll try something different. Just give me 1 second.
Use the share screen button, please. Now it's okay. Please do the slideshow.
Okay, thank you. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, just a few words about Scotland. So we're a country with a population of around 5.5 million people. We're a very diverse country in terms of geography and population, with islands, highlands, lowlands. And we're part of the UK, but we have a devolved government of which I'm a part, which is responsible for a wide range of policy, including health, education, environment, and so on. So what we're trying to achieve with DRS in Scotland, well, the first objective around increasing the amount of recycling, I think, is common to every DRS scheme, and I think you will understand very well. We're also aiming to improve the quality of material that is collected. A lot of plastic that is collected in Scotland goes into lower value applications like plumbing and so on. What we want to do is keep the material in high value use, so bottle to bottle to bottle to bottle, essentially. We're also aiming to encourage a wider behaviour change and understanding around the value of materials in the public, and some of the previous speakers have spoken a bit about that. And we're also looking to deliver an economic benefit in terms of attracting investment in reprocessing and materials processing capacity in Scotland. So it's not just about recycling for us, it's about all of these objectives. So where are we starting from? We're starting from a position where we collect around half of drinks containers in Scotland, and by the third full year of operation, we're aiming for a capture rate of around 90%. So that's the overall performance target for our scheme. The main features of the scheme in Scotland are it's a return to retail model, so much as the Minister spoke about. We want it to be as easy to return a container as it is to buy one. So essentially everywhere that sells beverages will be obligated to return them unless they are able to have an exemption. So we are expecting, many thousands of return points. The materials included are glass, PET plastic, aluminium and steel. The reason that HDPE plastic is not included in Scotland is that the main use of HDPE for packaging in Scotland is for fresh milk. And we wanted to exclude milk because of problems around odour and contamination and so on. So virtually all products are included in terms of types of beverage except fresh milk. There's a flat rate deposit of 20 pence, which I'll come back to later in terms of some of the discussions we had around that. It's an industry operated scheme, exactly as described by the Minister earlier, where the current status is a negotiation going on between producers and retailers to try and come to a deal over the ownership and administration of the scheme. Online sales are included in Scotland. This is to attempt to provide a level playing field between high street shops and online retailers. The scheme includes hospitality, so restaurants, bars, hotels, and so on. They pay the deposit, but they do not have to charge their customers the deposit, but then they take the risk on getting that material back in and reclaiming the deposit. Return points are able to use manual or automated return, and as I said, what we're aiming for is a start date of around July 2022. So the law was enacted earlier this year in May, so it's just over 2 years from enactment of the law to the scheme going live. So there'll be about 2.2 billion containers in scope in Scotland. We have worked out as part of our economic case for the scheme that we will achieve a total net benefit. We're projecting a total net benefit of £590 million over 25 years. For those of you that don't know, a pound is about 1.1 euros. So you have to add about 10% to convert from pounds to euros. And there's an emissions reduction projected of around 160,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent per annum. The main factors in the benefit side of the economic calculation are putting a price on the reduction in carbon, but also putting a price on the reduction in litter and improvement in amenity. So that's how our economic model works. I'll skip past this because you're a little bit tight for time. But one of the things to say is, if you look at the right-hand side of these graphs, the total cost that we're projecting on an annual basis for the scheme is around £93 million. Again, add 10% for euros. This shows where the money is spent. The vast, the biggest component in the cost of the scheme is the handling fee. It's by far the largest component there. And then this graph, again, look at the right-hand column. This is where the income comes from, and it shows that the unredeemed deposits is projected to be the biggest element of the income, and you can see that the other elements there from sale of materials and unredeemed deposits, and then the graph on the right shows you that in percentage terms. These are some projections that we have made for the producer fee by material type. Again, I would ask you to look at the right-hand column here, which is the one to be relevant. So again, you need to add about 10% for euro cents, but you can see the sort of range that we are projecting for the deposit. For the producer fee, sorry. But that is still to be confirmed through a negotiation, still to be decided through a negotiation between the retailers and producers as part of the system administrator development. So yeah, so just to reinforce that point, these numbers are a projection, and the actual handling fee will be agreed between producers and retailers, but the base case projection is that the handling fee will be about 2.8 pence for automatic return and about 1.1 pence for manual. So a quick word about some of the key choices we made, some of the difficult decisions. So the biggest pressure we got, I think, from industry was about timeline, how long it would take them to establish such a scheme. we have a retail market that is dominated by large supermarkets in Scotland and the UK. And we're expecting something of the order of 3,000 or so reverse vending machines to be needed to provide the infrastructure alongside manual return. And so the industry argued strongly that it would take them, around 2 years to get from the law being enacted to being ready. Other countries have done it more quickly, but that is where we landed in Scotland. There were a lot of arguments around the inclusion of glass. Some schemes have it, some schemes don't. It roughly doubles the cost of the scheme to include glass because it's heavy and it's more difficult to transport and it's got lower value. But what we found is that quite a lot of the carbon benefit that is used to make our economic case comes from including glass. So overall, we found that there was a net benefit economically in including glass in the scheme. We had a lot of discussion about the deposit level. There were quite a few people in industry argued for a variable deposit level where it was lower for small containers and higher for big containers. We decided that a flat rate deposit would be simplest for consumers, and also we were concerned that a lower deposit would make some of the smaller containers, which are used more on the go and hardest to get returned, that it would provide less incentive for them. So that's why we ended up with a flat rate deposit. System ownership I've talked about, where we've gone for an industry-owned model to reinforce the principle of producer responsibility. And the other issue that's still a live debate is whether we should have a separate Scottish scheme or link into a UK scheme. We've decided to go with a Scottish scheme, but we are still speaking to the rest of the UK about coordinating with them. So that's it. The last slide there is just a timeline of key events of where we're at. The point we're at now is just working with some people who are some industry players who are putting together a system administrator proposal, and we're hoping in the next few months to receive an application for approval from a group that wishes to be a system administrator in Scotland. That's it from me.
Thank you, Mr. McGillivray. Let's take up 2 questions from those received. As we know, Scotland has a high percentage of the beverages sold in the traditional trade. How have you encouraged the small shops to be part of DRS network? What are the potential advantages for them? And let me raise the second one and try to respond to both of them. You have decided a broad scope of products in DRS. What is the objective of this decision?
Yeah, so including the small retailers again was a tricky choice. It's fair to say at the start of our discussions on DRS, the small retailers were skeptical. They were worried about the cost to them. So there are 2 arguments that really have brought them on board. One is that this is going to become part of people's daily, weekly shopping routine. And so if the small shops want to maintain the footfall and maintain people coming to their shop, then they need to be a return point. The risk for them is that if the return points are just at the big shops, then people will go there and custom will drift away from the small shops. So the small shops, I think, understand the benefit of being a return point and bringing customers to them who then will spend money in the shop. The other key issue has been then to convince them that the handling fee will make the cost of the scheme cost neutral to them. So that is the other fundamental issue, is to convince them that the handling fee will work for small retailers and add up and make it so that it doesn't cost them money. So what's included in the handling fee includes the machine if they need it, the floor space, the people time, all that, just to try and convince them that the handling fee will be cost neutral. So those are the key points on small retailers. In terms of the issues around the scope, then it's for us, it's really around two things. One is a level playing field. So not trying to encourage, not trying to obligate one product over another, trying to make that as fair as possible for products that are sold in similar types of packaging. So it's just a basic kind of market fairness issue, I guess, for us. But then also it's about, if you're going to spend the money to, it will cost quite a lot of money to establish the scheme. So if you're going to pay that money, then you want to use it to capture as much material as possible, and therefore it makes sense to have the scope as broad as possible.